A stranger gave a homeless man $100 at a gas station. What he did next will make you cry. Before we continue with this story, tell us where you are watching from. We will like to connect with you. Make sure you are subscribed to this channel for more wonderful stories. The fluorescent lights of the Sunoco station buzzed overhead like dying insects, casting harsh shadows across the cracked asphalt. Marcus Thompson sat hunched against the cold brick wall, his weathered hands wrapped around a lukewarm cup of coffee that had long since lost its warmth. The cardboard sign beside him read, "Anything helps, God bless," in faded black marker, the edges soft from too many nights of rain. At 38, Marcus had once been a different man entirely. Clean-shaven, wearing pressed suits, carrying a briefcase filled with architectural blueprints that would reshape city skylines. But that was before the accident, before the hospital bills, before Sarah took the kids and disappeared into a life that no longer included him. Now, 3 months into living on the streets, he measured time not in hours or days, but in small acts of human kindness, a dropped quarter, a shared sandwich, a nod of acknowledgement from someone who still saw him as human. The November wind cut through his thin jacket like a blade, and Marcus pulled his knit cap lower over his ears. The gas station was relatively quiet for a Tuesday evening, just the occasional customer rushing in for cigarettes or energy drinks, most avoiding eye contact as they hurried past. He'd learned not to take it personally. People had their own struggles, their own burdens to carry. The bell above the station door chimed, and Marcus glanced up to see a woman in her early 30s stepping out into the cold. She was tall and graceful, with auburn hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and wearing scrubs that suggested she'd just finished a long shift at the hospital. Her name tag read Dr. Sophia Hayes, though Marcus couldn't make out the smaller text beneath it from his position on the ground. She paused at her car, a modest Honda Civic that had seen better years, and fumbled through her purse for keys. As she did, their eyes met across the parking lot. Instead of looking away, she held his gaze for a moment, and Marcus saw something there that he hadn't encountered in months. Genuine recognition, as if she was seeing him not as a problem to avoid, but as a person with a story. Sophia approached slowly, her footsteps deliberate but not hesitant. She stopped a respectful distance away, close enough to speak without shouting, far enough to let him maintain his dignity. "Excuse me," she said, her voice carrying the kind of exhaustion that came from saving lives all day. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I couldn't help but notice. You look like you could use a warm meal." Marcus looked up at her, studying her face. There was no pity in her expression, no condescension, just tired kindness. "I'm doing okay, ma'am. Thank you for asking." "My name is Sophia," she said, crouching down to his level. "What's yours?" "Marcus." He was surprised by how long it had been since someone had asked his name. She reached into her purse and pulled out a crisp $100 bill. Marcus's eyes widened. In 3 months on the streets, he'd never seen someone offer such a large amount. Most people, when they gave at all, offered spare change or maybe a $5 bill. "I know this might seem like a lot," Sophia said, holding the money out to him. "But I just finished a 14-hour shift in the ER, and I saw things today that reminded me how precious life is, how quickly everything can change. I can't help everyone, but maybe I can help you, right now in this moment." Marcus stared at the bill, his mind racing. $100 meant food for weeks, a night in a real bed, maybe even a shower and clean clothes. It meant dignity restored, if only temporarily. But as he looked at Sophia's face, really looked at her, he saw something else. The deep circles under her eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly from fatigue, the wedding ring on her finger that caught the harsh fluorescent light. "Ma'am, Sophia, this is incredibly generous, but I have to ask, can you really afford this? I mean, are you sure?" She smiled then, a real smile that transformed her tired face. "I'm sure. Sometimes we're put in each other's paths for a reason, don't you think?" Marcus accepted the money with shaking hands, but as his fingers closed around the bill, something unexpected happened. Instead of the relief he'd anticipated, He felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility. This wasn't just money, it was trust, hope, faith in his humanity when he'd nearly forgotten it himself. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You have no idea what this means." "Take care of yourself, Marcus," Sophia said, standing up. "And remember, sometimes rock bottom is just a foundation to build something better." As she walked back to her car, Marcus watched her go, the $100 bill still clutched in his hands. But something had shifted inside him in those few minutes of conversation. For the first time in months, he wasn't thinking about his next meal or where he'd sleep tonight. He was thinking about something else entirely, something that would change not just his life, but the life of the woman who'd shown him such unexpected kindness. The gas station lights flickered overhead, and Marcus stood up slowly, his joints protesting after hours of sitting on cold concrete. He looked down at the money in his hands, then at Sophia's car as it pulled out of the parking lot and disappeared into the night. What he was about to do next would surprise everyone, including himself. What do you think Marcus should do with this unexpected gift? Have you ever been in a situation where someone's kindness completely changed your perspective? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Marcus stood in the parking lot long after Sophia's taillights had disappeared into the November darkness, the $100 bill still warm in his palm. The weight of it felt heavier than its physical presence suggested. It carried the burden of trust, of hope, of a stranger's faith in his humanity when he'd nearly lost faith in himself. 3 months ago, Marcus Thompson had been a different man entirely. He'd been the lead architect at Morrison & Associates, designing sustainable housing developments that would transform entire neighborhoods. His sketches had covered the walls of his home office, each blueprint a testament to his vision of creating spaces where families could thrive, where communities could grow stronger. Sarah used to joke that he loved buildings more than people, but that wasn't true. He loved buildings because of the people who would live in them. The accident had changed everything in a matter of seconds. A drunk driver running a red light, Marcus's car spinning through the intersection, the sickening crunch of metal and glass. He'd survived, but the traumatic brain injury had left him with severe headaches, memory gaps, and an inability to focus on complex tasks for more than a few minutes at a time. The intricate architectural work that had defined his identity became impossible. The medical bills mounted faster than his disability insurance could cover them. Sarah had tried to be supportive at first. She'd held his hand through the rehabilitation sessions, had spoken optimistically about his recovery, had rearranged their entire life around his limitations. But as weeks turned to months, and Marcus remained unable to work, unable to be the provider and protector he'd always been, something fundamental had shifted between them. "I feel like I'm living with a stranger," she'd said during their last real conversation, her voice breaking. "The man I married, he's just gone." She'd taken Emma and Jake, their 8- and 10-year-old children, to her mother's house in Portland. The divorce papers had arrived 6 weeks later, along with a note that simply said, "I'm sorry. I tried. I hope you find yourself again." Marcus had lost the house 3 weeks after that. Without income, without savings, without the ability to maintain steady employment, he'd found himself on the streets with nothing but a backpack full of clothes and a heart full of regret. The man who had once designed homes for others now had no home of his own. But standing in that gas station parking lot, something stirred in Marcus that he hadn't felt in months: purpose. The money in his hand wasn't just a gift, it was an opportunity. And suddenly, he knew exactly what he needed to do with it. He thought about Sophia Hayes, the exhausted doctor who had shown him such unexpected kindness. She'd said she'd just finished a 14-hour shift in the ER, that she'd seen things that reminded her how precious life was. There had been something in her eyes, a weariness that went deeper than physical fatigue. Marcus recognized it because he'd seen it in his own reflection during those dark months before he'd lost everything. The look of someone carrying more than they could bear. Her wedding ring had caught the light as she'd handed him the money, but Marcus had noticed something else too. The ring was loose on her finger, as if she'd lost weight recently. Her scrubs hung slightly loose as well, and there were stress lines around her eyes that spoke of more than just a long day at work. Marcus folded the $100 bill carefully and tucked it into his jacket pocket. Then he picked up his cardboard sign, his coffee cup, and the small backpack that contained everything he owned in the world. But instead of heading toward the nearby McDonald's or the budget motel down the street, he walked to the payphone outside the gas station. The phone book was torn and weather-beaten, but Marcus found what he was looking for: St. Mary's Hospital, just 2 miles down the road. He dug through his pockets for quarters, finding just enough to make the call. St. Mary's Hospital, how may I direct your call? Emergency department, please, Marcus said, his voice steadier than it had been in months. Emergency department, this is Janet. Marcus took a deep breath. Hi, I'm calling about Dr. Sophia Hayes. I'm not family, but I wanted to know, is she okay? I mean, is she going through something difficult right now? There was a pause. I'm sorry, sir, but I can't give out personal information about our staff members. I understand, Marcus said quickly. It's just, she helped me tonight, and I got the impression that maybe she needed help too. Is there any way you could tell me if she's dealing with something serious? Another pause, longer this time. Are you a friend of Dr. Hayes? Marcus considered the question. Were they friends? They'd spoken for maybe 10 minutes total, but in that brief interaction, he'd felt more seen and understood than he had in months. I'd like to be, he said finally. She showed me incredible kindness tonight, and I want to return that kindness if I can. Hold on, Janet said. Marcus heard muffled voices in the background, what sounded like a brief consultation. Then Janet came back on the line. Dr. Hayes she's been going through a difficult time lately. Her husband was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer 6 months ago. She's been working extra shifts to pay for his treatment, and, well, let's just say she could use some good news right now. Marcus felt his heart clench. Sophia had given him $100, money she probably couldn't spare, while dealing with her own devastating crisis. She was fighting to save her husband's life while working herself to exhaustion, and still she'd found room in her heart to help a stranger. Thank you, Marcus said softly. Thank you for telling me. He hung up the phone and stood there for a moment, processing what he'd learned. Then he pulled out the $100 bill again, looking at it with new eyes. This money wasn't just a gift, it was a tool. And Marcus Thompson, who had once designed buildings that brought communities together, was about to design something even more important. A way to give hope back to the woman who had given him his own. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and Marcus began to walk with purpose for the first time in months. He had work to do, and for the first time since the accident, he knew exactly what that work was. Sometimes the people who give the most are the ones who need the most themselves. Have you ever discovered that someone who helped you was fighting their own battles? What would you do in Marcus's situation? Marcus walked through the cold November night with a determination he hadn't felt in months. Each step carried him further from the gas station and closer to an idea that was crystallizing in his mind with startling clarity. The $100 bill in his pocket seemed to pulse with possibility, but it wasn't enough for what he was planning. He needed more, not more money, but more people, more hearts willing to open for a stranger in need. The 24-hour diner on Maple Street glowed like a beacon in the darkness. Marcus had walked past it countless times during his months on the streets, always too proud or too ashamed to go inside. Tonight was different. Tonight, he pushed through the glass doors and was immediately enveloped by the warmth and the smell of coffee and bacon. The night shift waitress, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair, looked up from behind the counter. Her name tag read Betty, and she studied Marcus with the practiced eye of someone who'd seen every kind of person this city had to offer. "Can I help you, hon?" she asked, her voice carrying no judgment, just genuine curiosity. "I need to use your computer," Marcus said, pulling out the $100 bill. "I'll buy food, whatever you want, but I need internet access. It's important." Betty's eyebrows rose slightly at the sight of the money. "Computer's in the back office. But honey, you look like you could use a hot meal more than internet right now. When's the last time you ate?" Marcus realized he couldn't remember. It's been a while." Tell you what, Betty said, already moving toward the kitchen. I'll fix you a proper meal while you tell me what's so important that you need to get online at 2 in the morning. As Betty prepared a plate of eggs, bacon, and toast, Marcus found himself telling her about Sophia, about the $100, about the phone call to the hospital. He told her about David Hayes, fighting stage 4 pancreatic cancer, while his wife worked herself to exhaustion trying to save him. That's quite a story, Betty said, setting the steaming plate in front of him. But I still don't understand why you need a computer. Marcus took a bite of the eggs, the first real food he'd tasted in days, and pulled out his phone. The screen was cracked, and the battery was nearly dead, but it still worked. I need to set up a crowdfunding page. A GoFundMe for David's medical expenses. Betty stared at him. You're homeless, carrying around $100 that could change your life, and you want to give it away to strangers? Not strangers, Marcus corrected. A woman who saw me as human when most people look right through me. A woman who's about to lose everything trying to save the person she loves most. Betty disappeared into the back office and returned with a laptop. This is my daughter's old computer. Password is Sunshine123. You do what you need to do, and don't you dare try to pay me for that meal. Marcus's fingers trembled as he navigated to the GoFundMe website. His head still ached from the injury, and focusing on the screen was difficult, but he pushed through. He'd designed buildings before, complex structures that required precision and vision. This was just a different kind of architecture, building hope instead of homes. The title came to him immediately. Help Dr. Sophia Hayes save her husband's life. As he typed, the words flowed with surprising ease. My name is Marcus, and 3 hours ago, I was a homeless man sitting outside a gas station, invisible to the world. Then Dr. Sophia Hayes saw me, really saw me, and gave me $100 with no questions asked, no judgment, just pure human kindness. I later learned that Sophia's husband, David, is fighting stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She's been working 14-hour shifts to pay for his treatment, giving everything she has to save the man she loves. The woman who gave me hope when I had none is now facing the fight of her life. I'm starting this campaign with the $100 Sophia gave me, but I know this community has bigger hearts than that. Pancreatic cancer treatment is expensive, often $100,000 or more. Insurance doesn't cover everything, and families like the Hayes are forced to choose between bankruptcy and hope. Sophia showed me that we're all connected, that kindness creates ripples we can't even imagine. Let's create a wave of kindness for her family. Let's show her that the compassion she gave to a stranger will come back to her when she needs it most. Every dollar matters. Every share matters. Every prayer matters. Help me pay forward the kindness that saved my life tonight. Marcus stared at the screen, his heart pounding. This was it. The moment that would either start something beautiful or end in crushing disappointment. He uploaded the $100 bill as the first donation, including a photo of it with a note. From a homeless man who believes in miracles. Then he clicked publish. The page went live at 2:47 a.m., and Marcus sat back in the diner booth, exhausted but exhilarated. Betty refilled his coffee cup and sat across from him. What now? She asked. Now I wait, Marcus said. And I pray that people still believe in kindness. His phone buzzed. Dead battery. Marcus looked at Betty with panic in his eyes. Use mine, she said, handing him her smartphone. I want to see this too. Marcus refreshed the GoFundMe page on Betty's phone. One donation, $100. Then he shared the link on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, every social media platform he could think of. He tagged local news stations, community groups, anyone who might care about a story of hope in the darkness. At 3:15 a.m., something extraordinary happened. Betty's phone lit up with a notification. Someone had shared the post. Then another share. Then another. Marcus watched in amazement as the numbers began to climb. Not just shares, but donations. $10 from someone named Jennifer. $25 from Mike. $50 from a woman named Linda who wrote, "This made me cry. Thank you for showing us what real kindness looks like." By 4 a.m., the campaign had raised $500. By 5 a.m., it had been shared over 200 times. By 6 a.m., as the sun began to rise over the city, Marcus Thompson, A homeless man who had lost everything watched the donation total climb past $2,000. But the real miracle was still to come. At 6:30 a.m., Betty's phone rang. The caller ID showed St. Mary's Hospital. "This is Betty," she answered, then immediately handed the phone to Marcus. "It's for you." Marcus took the phone with shaking hands. "Hello. Is this Marcus Thompson?" The voice was female, emotional, barely controlled. "Yes, it is. This is Dr. Sophia Hayes. I just saw what you did. I'm calling from the hospital, and I can't stop crying." "Marcus, how did you know? How did you know about David?" Marcus closed his eyes, feeling tears stream down his face. "Because kindness recognizes kindness, Sophia. Because you saved my life tonight, and I wanted to save yours. What would you do if you discovered that a stranger had turned your small act of kindness into something life-changing? Have you ever seen how one person's generosity can inspire an entire community? Share your thoughts below." The silence on the other end of the phone stretched for what felt like an eternity. Marcus could hear Sophia's ragged breathing, the background noise of the hospital's early morning bustle, and what sounded like muffled sobs. "Sophia," he said gently, "are you okay?" "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice thick with tears. "I'm not okay. I haven't been okay for months. And Marcus, what you've done, I don't understand how or why, but people are calling the hospital. The donation page is everywhere. My colleagues are showing me their phones, and I can't process this." Marcus felt his heart swell with a mixture of joy and concern. "Where are you right now? Are you safe?" "I'm in the family waiting room. David's having another round of chemo, and I was trying to catch some sleep before my shift starts in 2 hours. Her voice broke. "Marcus, we're 3 months behind on our mortgage. I've been working every shift I can get, but the medical bills, they're drowning us. Last week, I had to choose between buying David's anti-nausea medication and keeping our electricity on." The weight of her words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He'd known she was struggling, but hearing the specific details made it real in a way that statistics couldn't capture. "Sophia, how much do you need?" "I mean for everything, the mortgage, the medical bills, David's treatment." There was a pause. "I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm asking." $130,000, she said quietly. "Maybe more. The experimental treatment that might save his life costs $80,000, and insurance won't cover it because it's still in trials. Our mortgage is $2,800 a month, and we're 3 months behind. Credit cards are maxed out. I sold my car and David's motorcycle, but it barely made a dent." Marcus looked at Betty, who had been listening to his side of the conversation with growing amazement. She nodded encouragingly, and Marcus felt a surge of determination. "Sophia, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" "I already do," she said without hesitation. "What you did tonight. Marcus, I don't even know your last name, and you've done more for my family than people I've known for years. Thompson. Marcus Thompson. And I'm going to ask you for something that might sound crazy. After what you've already done, I think I can handle crazy." Marcus took a deep breath. "I need you to come to the diner on Maple Street. I need you to meet Betty. She's the waitress who helped me set up the GoFundMe. And I need you to be willing to share your story with people who want to help. I don't understand. The donation page is going viral, Sophia. People are sharing it thousands of times. But they need to see you, to hear from you directly. They need to know that David is real, that your love is real, that their donations are going to make a difference." There was another long pause. "Marcus, I look terrible. I haven't slept in 18 hours, I've been crying, and I smell like hospital disinfectant." "You look like someone who's fighting for the person she loves most in the world," Marcus said firmly. "You look like a hero." 30 minutes later, Dr. Sophia Hayes walked into the diner on Maple Street, and Marcus saw her clearly for the first time in proper lighting. She was even more beautiful than he'd realized, but it was a beauty carved by struggle and refined by love. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a messy bun, dark circles shadowed her green eyes, and her scrubs were wrinkled from hours of sitting in uncomfortable hospital chairs. But when she saw Marcus, her face lit up with a smile that transformed her completely. "You're not what I expected," she said, sliding into the booth across from him. "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Someone older, maybe. someone who looked like they had their life together. She paused, studying his face. You have kind eyes. I noticed that at the gas station, but I can see it even more clearly now. Betty appeared with coffee and a plate of pancakes. Dr. Hayes, I presume. I'm Betty, and I want you to know that what this man did tonight restored my faith in humanity. As Sophia ate, clearly the first food she'd had in hours, Marcus showed her the GoFundMe page on Betty's phone. The numbers had continued to climb. $5,000, then $8,000, then $12,000. But more importantly, the comments were pouring in. This is what real love looks like. Shared in our church Facebook group. Praying for David and Sophia. My husband died of pancreatic cancer last year. I wish we'd had this kind of support. Donating what I can. The homeless man who started this campaign is a true angel. Restoring my faith in humanity. Sophia read comment after comment, tears streaming down her face. I can't believe this is real. Marcus, people are giving money they probably can't afford, all because you chose to help us instead of yourself. Can I ask you something? Marcus said. That night at the gas station, you said sometimes we're put in each other's paths for a reason. Do you really believe that? I have to, Sophia said. Especially after tonight. Marcus, can I tell you something that might sound crazy? After what I've done tonight, I think I can handle crazy. She smiled at his echo of her earlier words. I was having the worst day of my life yesterday. David's latest scan showed the cancer has spread to his liver. His oncologist said we're running out of options. I worked a double shift, and then I had to stop for gas. And I saw you sitting there, and something inside me just broke. What do you mean? I mean, I gave you that $100 because I was so tired of feeling helpless. I couldn't save my husband, I couldn't pay our bills, I couldn't fix anything. But maybe I could help one person, just one person, have a better night. It was selfish, in a way. I needed to feel like I could still make a difference somewhere. Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through him. Not romantic, exactly, but something deeper. Recognition. Connection. The sense that two broken people could somehow help each other heal. Sophia, you did make a difference. You saved my life last night. And now, maybe we can save David's. She squeezed his hand. How do we do that? Marcus looked at Betty, who nodded encouragingly. We tell your story. We let people see who you really are, what you're really fighting for. We trust that there are enough good people in this world to create a miracle. What if it doesn't work? What if people lose interest, or we don't raise enough money? Then we'll have tried, Marcus said. And sometimes, trying is enough to change everything. But even as he spoke the words, Marcus felt a growing weight of responsibility. The campaign was spreading faster than he'd ever imagined, and with that attention came scrutiny. Already, some of the comments were questioning his story, demanding proof, wondering if this was all an elaborate scam. The morning news was starting to pick up the story. Marcus's phone, now charged thanks to Betty's cable, was buzzing with friend requests from people he'd never met. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a small voice was whispering that success could be just as dangerous as failure. But looking at Sophia's face, seeing hope return to her eyes for the first time in months, Marcus pushed those fears aside. They had work to do. Have you ever felt the weight of responsibility that comes with trying to help someone? What would you do if a small act of kindness suddenly became a public campaign? Share your thoughts on how communities can come together in times of crisis. By noon, the GoFundMe campaign had raised $47,000, been shared over 10,000 times, and caught the attention of 3 local news stations. Marcus and Sophia sat in the diner, watching their story unfold on Betty's laptop with a mixture of amazement and growing anxiety. Channel 7 wants to interview us at 2 o'clock, Sophia said, staring at her phone. The producer said they've never seen a story go viral this fast in our city. Marcus nodded, but his attention was focused on something else entirely, the comments section of the GoFundMe page. Mixed in with the overwhelming support were increasingly pointed questions. How do we know this homeless man is real? Convenient that he just happened to know exactly how to set up a professional-looking campaign. Has anyone verified that Dr. Hayes actually exists? This feels like a scam. Where's the proof? The doubt was spreading like a virus through the digital community they'd built. Marcus felt his chest tighten as he read comment after comment questioning their authenticity, their motives, their very existence. Marcus. Sophia's voice seemed to come from very far away. You look pale. What's wrong? He turned the laptop toward her, and she read the comments in growing horror. Oh my God. They think we're lying. They think this is all fake. It gets worse, Marcus said, scrolling down to a comment that made his blood run cold. Look at this one. A user named TruthSeeker47 had posted. I did some digging on this Marcus Thompson. Found a Marcus Thompson who was an architect before he became homeless. Same guy was involved in a lawsuit 3 years ago over a building collapse that injured 6 people. Coincidence? I think not. This man is a fraud who's using a sick woman's desperation to scam good people. Sophia's face went white. Marcus, is that true? Were you sued? The question hung in the air like a blade. Marcus felt the familiar pain behind his eyes that came whenever he tried to remember the details of his life before the accident. The traumatic brain injury had stolen so much from him, not just his ability to focus, but entire chunks of his memory. I don't know, he said finally. After my accident, there are things I can't remember. Whole months are just gone. But Sophia, I would never. I know, she said quickly, but Marcus could see the uncertainty in her eyes. I know you wouldn't, but other people don't know that. Betty appeared at their table with fresh coffee and a grim expression. You two need to see this. She handed them her phone, opened to a local news website. The headline read, Viral GoFundMe campaign raises questions about homeless man's past. The article was brutal. It detailed Marcus's career as an architect, the building collapse that had injured 6 construction workers, and the subsequent lawsuit that had dragged on for months. It painted a picture of a man who had fallen from grace and might now be exploiting public sympathy for personal gain. They're saying the building collapse was due to faulty design, Sophia read aloud. That you cut corners to save money, and that's why the scaffolding failed. Marcus grabbed his head as pain shot through his skull. I can't remember. I've tried so hard to remember what happened before the accident, but it's like there's a wall in my mind. All I know is that I was trying to build something good, something that would help people. The article says the lawsuit was settled out of court, Sophia continued. That you agreed to pay damages but never admitted wrongdoing. Because I couldn't remember wrongdoing, Marcus said desperately. My lawyers said it was better to settle than risk a trial where I couldn't defend myself properly. The diner fell silent except for the hum of the coffee machine and the distant murmur of other customers. Marcus watched as Sophia processed this information, saw the moment when doubt crept into her eyes despite her best efforts to hide it. The donations have stopped, she said quietly, refreshing the GoFundMe page. In fact, people are starting to demand refunds. Marcus felt his world collapsing again, just as it had after the accident, after the lawsuit, after Sarah left. But this time, it wasn't just his life being destroyed. It was Sophia's hope, David's chance at survival, and the faith of thousands of people who had believed in the power of kindness. I need to make a call, he said, standing abruptly. I need to find out the truth about what happened. Marcus, wait. But he was already walking outside, Betty's phone in his hand. He dialed a number he hadn't called in over a year, his former law firm. Morrison and Associates, this is Jennifer. Jennifer, it's Marcus Thompson. I need to speak with James Morrison. It's urgent. Marcus? Oh my God, where have you been? We've been trying to reach you for months. Just put me through to James, please. 2 minutes later, James Morrison's familiar voice came through the phone. Marcus, thank God. Where the hell are you? We've been sending letters to your last known address, but they keep coming back undelivered. I'm homeless, James. I lost everything. But that's not why I'm calling. I need to know the truth about the Riverside project. The building collapse. Was it my fault? There was a long pause. Marcus, you don't remember our last conversation? I don't remember anything from the 3 months before my accident. Please, James. There's a story going viral about me, and people are saying I'm a fraud because of the lawsuit. I need to know the truth. Jesus, Marcus. The truth is that you were vindicated. Completely. Do you remember the investigation we commissioned after the settlement? No. The independent engineering firm found that the collapse was caused by substandard materials supplied by the construction company. The steel beams were below specification. They literally used cheaper metal and falsified the safety certificates. Your design was flawless. The construction company was criminally negligent. Marcus felt his knees buckle. What? We tried to tell you this a year ago, but you'd already disappeared. The construction company was prosecuted, and they paid out millions in damages. Your name was completely cleared. In fact, the report praised your design as being so well engineered that it prevented what could have been a catastrophic collapse. You saved lives, Marcus. But the settlement was based on incomplete information. Once we had the full investigation, we could have reopened the case and gotten a massive judgment against the construction company. But we couldn't find you to tell you. Marcus slumped against the diner's brick wall, tears streaming down his face. James, I need you to send me everything. Every document, every report, everything that proves my innocence. And I need it now. Consider it done. But Marcus, where have you been? How did you end up homeless? Marcus looked through the diner window at Sophia, who was watching him with a mixture of hope and fear. I've been lost, James. But I think I'm finally finding my way back. 20 minutes later, Marcus walked back into the diner with James Morrison on speakerphone and a stack of documents being faxed to Betty's machine. Sophia listened as James explained the truth about the building collapse, the investigation, and Marcus's complete exoneration. Dr. Hayes, James said through the phone, the man you're sitting with is one of the most ethical architects I've ever known. He spent his own money to upgrade safety features that weren't even required by code. He literally saved lives. Sophia looked at Marcus with wonder. You never stopped being a builder, did you? You've just been building something different. What do you mean? Hope, she said simply. You've been building hope. Marcus pulled up the GoFundMe page on Betty's laptop. Armed with the truth, he began typing an update to the campaign, not just defending himself, but telling the complete story of redemption, of a man who had lost everything but found his purpose in helping others. As he typed, his phone buzzed with a call from Channel 7. Mr. Thompson? This is Sarah Chen from Channel 7 News. We'd like to change our story focus. We've been investigating the claims about your past, and we've uncovered some remarkable information. Would you be willing to do a live interview at 5 o'clock? We think this story is about to become even more powerful. Marcus looked at Sophia, who nodded encouragingly. Yes, he said. We'll be there. But as he hung up, Marcus noticed something that made his heart race. In the corner of the diner, a man in an expensive suit was talking quietly into his phone while watching them intently. The man's eyes were cold, calculating, and when he realized Marcus had noticed him, he quickly looked away. Sophia, Marcus said quietly, we might have a bigger problem than bad press. Sometimes the truth is more complicated than it first appears. Have you ever had your character questioned publicly? How do you think communities should handle situations where initial stories turn out to be incomplete? Share your thoughts on the power of redemption and second chances. The man in the expensive suit approached their table with the calculated confidence of someone accustomed to getting what he wanted. He was tall, silver-haired, and wore a watch that probably cost more than most people made in a year. When he smiled, it didn't reach his eyes. Dr. Hayes? Mr. Thompson? My name is Richard Blackstone. I represent Meridian Construction, the company involved in the Riverside Project lawsuit. Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. Sophia's hand instinctively reached for his across the table. What do you want? Marcus asked, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through his veins. Blackstone slid uninvited into the booth beside Sophia, forcing her to scoot closer to the window. I want to make you both an offer. A very generous offer. He placed a leather briefcase on the table and opened it, revealing stacks of cash. $100,000. Cash. Right now. All you have to do is shut down the GoFundMe campaign and disappear. Both of you. Sophia stared at the money, her face pale. I don't understand. Why would you? Because Dr. Hayes, your little boyfriend here, is about to cause my company some very expensive problems. Blackstone's voice remained pleasant, but there was steel underneath. You see, we've been monitoring this viral campaign of yours, and it's brought some unwanted attention to the Riverside Project. Attention that could cost us millions in new lawsuits. Marcus felt the familiar pain behind his eyes as fragments of memory tried to surface. The workers who were injured, they never got justice, did they? They got what they deserved under the settlement agreement, Blackstone said coldly. But now, thanks to your little publicity stunt, their families are hiring new lawyers. They're talking about reopening cases that were closed years ago. That's not good for business. Those men were permanently disabled because of your faulty materials, Marcus said, the memories slowly coming back in painful flashes. One of them, Rodriguez, he had 3 kids and lost the use of his legs. Another one, Thompson, no relation to me, he suffered brain damage that ended his career. Ancient history, Blackstone waved dismissively. The point is, you two have stirred up a hornet's nest, and I'm offering you a way out. Take the money. Disappear. Let sleeping dogs lie. Sophia found her voice. You're trying to buy our silence. I'm trying to solve a problem, Blackstone corrected. For everyone involved. Dr. Hayes, your husband needs expensive treatment. This money could pay for it immediately, no strings attached. You could have David in the best cancer center in the country by tomorrow. Marcus watched Sophia's face as she stared at the cash. He could see the war raging inside her, the desperate need to save her husband's life battling against her moral compass. $100,000 would indeed pay for David's experimental treatment, with money left over for their other debts. What happens if we say no? Marcus asked. Blackstone's smile turned predatory. Well, that would be unfortunate. You see, we've already started sharing some additional information about your past, Mr. Thompson. Did you know that during your recovery from the accident, you were arrested twice for public intoxication? That you've been in and out of mental health facilities? That your ex-wife filed a restraining order against you? Marcus felt the ground shifting beneath him. That's not. I was grieving. I was in pain. The details don't matter, Blackstone interrupted. What matters is the narrative. Unstable man with history of mental illness manipulates grieving doctor to scam charitable donors. It writes itself, doesn't it? Sophia's phone buzzed. She looked at it and gasped. Marcus, look at this. The screen showed a news alert. Breaking, questions raised about viral charity campaign as homeless man's criminal record surfaces. How is this possible? Sophia whispered. An hour ago, everyone was calling you a hero. Blackstone leaned back, looking satisfied. Information is a powerful weapon, Dr. Hayes. And in today's social media world, perception becomes reality very quickly. By tonight, Mr. Thompson will be painted as an unstable con artist, and you'll be seen as either his accomplice or his victim. Either way, your medical career will be over. Marcus pulled out Betty's phone and checked the GoFundMe page. His heart sank. Not only had donations stopped completely, but the comment section was now filled with vicious attacks. This guy is a fraud and probably dangerous. Dr. Hayes is either in on the scam or too naive to be trusted with patients. I'm reporting this to GoFundMe for fraud. Someone should call the medical board about this doctor. The homeless man has a history of mental illness and violence. Worse yet, people were demanding refunds, and the total had dropped from $47,000 to $23,000 in just 2 hours. You did this, Marcus said, looking at Blackstone with growing anger. You planted these stories. I simply made sure the complete truth came to light, Blackstone replied smoothly. The public has a right to know who they're really supporting. Sophia's phone rang. She answered with shaking hands. Dr. Hayes speaking. Marcus could hear the voice on the other end, cold and official. Sophia's face went white as she listened. I understand, she said finally. Yes, I'll be there tomorrow morning. She hung up and stared at the table. That was the hospital administration. I'm being placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into my involvement with fraudulent charity schemes. They said patients and donors have been calling all morning expressing concerns about my judgment. No, Marcus said desperately. Sophia, this is my fault. Tell them. It doesn't matter what I tell them, she said, her voice hollow. The damage is done. And without my job, I can't afford David's treatment anyway. Blackstone pushed the briefcase closer to her. This is your way out, Dr. Hayes. Take the money. Save your husband. Start over somewhere else. Marcus watched as Sophia stared at the cash, and he saw the exact moment when hope died in her eyes. She reached for the briefcase. Sophia, no, Marcus pleaded. There has to be another way. What other way? She snapped, and for the first time since he'd met her, there was anger in her voice. You've destroyed everything, Marcus. My career, my reputation, my husband's chance at survival. You wanted to help. This is helping. Take the money and disappear, just like he says. Marcus felt his heart shatter. The woman who had shown him kindness, who had believed in him when no one else would, now looked at him with the same disgust he'd seen in Sarah's eyes during their divorce. I never meant for this to happen, he whispered. Good intentions don't save dying husbands, Sophia said coldly. She turned to Blackstone. If I take this money, you guarantee the attacks will stop. Completely. In fact, we'll ensure that your reputation is quietly rehabilitated. A few strategic donations to the hospital, some positive stories about your dedication to patient care. Within 6 months, this will all be forgotten. Sophia nodded and reached for the briefcase again. But as her fingers touched the leather handle, Marcus's phone rang. The caller ID showed St. Mary's Hospital. Don't answer it, Blackstone said quickly. But something in his tone made Marcus suspicious. He answered the call. Marcus? This is Janet from the ER. Is Dr. Hayes with you? Yes, she's here. Thank God. Marcus, you need to get her back to the hospital right now. It's David. He's taken a turn for the worse. His condition is critical. And, Marcus, they're saying he might not make it through the night. The phone slipped from Marcus's hands and clattered onto the table. Sophia grabbed it. Janet, what's happening to my husband? As Sophia listened to the medical details, her face crumpled. The briefcase full of money sat forgotten on the table as the only thing that truly mattered, David's life, hung in the balance. And in that moment, Marcus realized that all the money in the world wouldn't matter if they were too late. Have you ever faced a moment where doing the right thing seemed to make everything worse? How do you think people should respond when their good intentions have unintended consequences? Share your thoughts on what Sophia should do in this impossible situation. The drive to St. Mary's Hospital was a blur of tears, desperation, and screeching tires. Marcus sat in the passenger seat of Betty's old Honda, while Sophia gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles were white. In the back seat, the briefcase full of Blackstone's money bounced with every pothole, a constant reminder of the devil's bargain they'd left on the table. He can't die, Sophia whispered for the 10th time since they'd left the diner. Not now. Not when we were so close to getting the money for his treatment. Marcus wanted to comfort her, but the words felt hollow in his throat. Everything he'd touched had turned to ash. His attempt to help had destroyed Sophia's career, tainted their fundraising campaign, and now David was dying while they'd been sitting in a diner arguing with corporate lawyers. They burst through the hospital's automatic doors and ran toward the elevators. As they waited for what felt like an eternity, Marcus noticed something that made his heart sink even further. People were staring at them, nurses, patients, visitors. He could see recognition in their eyes, followed quickly by disgust or pity. That's her, he heard someone whisper. The doctor from the news. The one involved in that fake charity thing. Sophia's shoulders sagged as she heard the comment. The elevator doors finally opened, and they rode to the oncology floor in heavy silence. Dr. Patricia Williams, David's oncologist, met them at the nurse's station. Her expression was grave. Sophia, I'm so sorry. David went into septic shock about an hour ago. His white blood cell count has dropped dangerously low, and his body is struggling to fight off infection. We've got him on 4 antibiotics and blood pressure medications, but what? Sophia demanded. His body is shutting down. The chemo has weakened his immune system to the point where even minor infections become life-threatening. We're doing everything we can, but Sophia, you need to prepare yourself. We may only have hours. Marcus watched Sophia's world collapse. Her legs gave out, and he caught her before she could fall. Through the glass window of David's room, he could see the man Sophia loved more than life itself, pale, skeletal, connected to more machines than seemed possible. David Hayes looked like he was already halfway to the other side. I need to see him, Sophia whispered. Of course. But Sophia, there's something else. The hospital board has asked me to inform you that your administrative leave is effective immediately. You're not allowed to participate in David's care as a physician. You're saying I can't help save my own husband? You can be here as his wife, but not as his doctor. Marcus felt a surge of rage unlike anything he'd experienced since his accident. This is because of the news stories, isn't it? Because of what they're saying about us. Dr. Williams looked uncomfortable. The board feels that Dr. Hayes' judgment may be compromised and given the media attention. Her judgment. Marcus stepped forward, his voice rising. Her judgment is the only reason I'm standing here instead of dying on the streets. Her judgment is the only reason thousands of people donated money to help a stranger. Her judgment is what makes her the best damn doctor in this hospital. Marcus, please, Sophia said quietly. It doesn't matter now. But it did matter. Standing in that hospital corridor, watching the woman who had saved his life being stripped of her dignity and her purpose, Marcus felt something shift inside him. The fog that had clouded his mind since the accident began to clear, replaced by a burning clarity he hadn't felt in months. Sophia, I need you to listen to me, he said, taking her hands in his. I know you don't trust me anymore. I know I've ruined everything. But I need you to believe in me one more time. Marcus, David is not going to die. Not today. Not like this. His voice carried a conviction that surprised even him. You saved my life by seeing me as a human being when everyone else saw nothing. Now I'm going to save David's life, and I'm going to do it by showing the world who you really are. Sophia stared at him through her tears. How? My career is over. The fundraising campaign is destroyed. Blackstone wins either way. Marcus pulled out his phone, his own phone, which Betty had helped him charge and repair. Because I just remembered something important about the Riverside project. Something that's going to change everything. He scrolled through his contacts until he found the number he was looking for. James Morrison's office. This is Jennifer. Jennifer, it's Marcus again. I need you to patch me through to Detective Luis Vasquez at the Metro Police Department. Tell him it's about the Riverside project and that I'm ready to talk about what I saw the day before my accident. Sophia's eyes widened. Marcus, what are you remembering? I'm remembering why I was driving through that intersection at 11 o'clock at night, Marcus said, pieces falling into place in his mind. I wasn't going home from the office. I was going to meet someone. The phone connected. Detective Vasquez speaking. Detective, this is Marcus Thompson. We spoke 3 years ago about the Riverside project building collapse. Thompson? Jesus, we've been looking for you. Where the hell have you been? That's a long story. But I need to tell you something I couldn't remember before. The night of my accident, I was on my way to meet Miguel Rodriguez, one of the workers who was injured in the collapse. He'd called me earlier that day and said he had evidence that Meridian Construction was using substandard materials. He had photos, documents, proof that they knew the steel beams were defective. There was a pause. Miguel Rodriguez died 2 years ago. Cancer, supposedly related to exposure to toxic materials at the construction site. Marcus felt his blood run cold. Detective, I think Miguel's death wasn't natural. And I think my accident wasn't an accident either. What are you saying? I'm saying Blackstone had us both silenced. The difference is I survived. Marcus looked at Sophia, who was staring at him with a mixture of shock and dawning hope. Detective, if I can prove that Meridian Construction has been covering up criminal negligence for years, that they've been intimidating witnesses and possibly committing murder, would that be enough to reopen all the cases? If you have proof, it would be enough to bring down their entire company. Then I need police protection, and I need it now. Richard Blackstone is here in the city, and he just tried to bribe me and Dr. Hayes to keep quiet about what we know. Marcus hung up and turned to Sophia. I'm going to destroy Blackstone's company and get justice for all the workers who were hurt. The settlements from that lawsuit will fund David's treatment and a dozen other families like yours. How? Because 3 years ago, Miguel Rodriguez gave me copies of all his evidence. I hid them in a safety deposit box and forgot about it after my accident. But I remember now. Marcus felt his mind clearing more with each passing moment, as if telling the truth was burning away the fog of trauma and guilt that had clouded his thoughts for so long. The evidence is still there. Photos of the defective steel beams, email chains showing Blackstone knew about the problems and chose to use the materials anyway, falsified safety reports. Everything we need to prove that Meridian Construction is responsible for multiple deaths and injuries. Sophia's phone buzzed. She looked at it and gasped. Marcus, look at this. The screen showed a notification from the GoFundMe page. Someone had donated $50,000 with a note that read, "From the family of Miguel Rodriguez. He always said Marcus Thompson was a good man who was trying to protect workers. We believe in the truth." Then another notification. And another. The donations weren't just returning. They were pouring in faster than ever. "How is this possible?" Sophia whispered. Marcus showed her his phone, where Detective Vasquez had just sent a text. Story leaked to press. Meridian Construction under criminal investigation. You're being hailed as a whistleblower hero. Media narrative completely flipped. Through the window of David's room, Marcus saw something that made his heart soar. David's eyes were open, and he was looking around weakly but alertly. The sepsis crisis seemed to be passing. Dr. Williams appeared at Sophia's shoulder. "I don't understand it." His white cell count just jumped dramatically. It's like his body suddenly found the strength to fight. Sophia looked at Marcus with wonder. "You did this. You gave him hope to fight." "We did this," Marcus corrected. "Together. Have you ever experienced a moment where the truth completely changed everything? What do you think gives people the strength to fight when everything seems hopeless? Share your thoughts on how love and truth can overcome even the darkest circumstances. Part 8. Climactic Resolution. The next 24 hours unfolded like a perfectly orchestrated symphony of justice and redemption. Marcus sat in the safety deposit box vault at First National Bank, surrounded by Detective Vasquez, FBI agent Sarah Martinez, and a team of federal prosecutors. Spread across the table were hundreds of documents, photographs, and digital files that Miguel Rodriguez had risked his life to collect. "This is incredible," Agent Martinez said, holding up a series of photographs showing steel beams with visible cracks and falsified inspection tags. Rodriguez documented everything: the defective materials, the bribes to inspectors, even recorded conversations with Meridian supervisors ordering workers to install materials they knew were dangerous. Detective Vasquez shook his head in amazement. "Marcus, Miguel was building a federal case when he died. These documents prove that Meridian Construction has been operating a criminal enterprise for over a decade. They've been responsible for at least 6 building collapses, dozens of injuries, and now we know Miguel's death wasn't from cancer. Toxicology reports we had sealed show he was poisoned." Marcus felt a mixture of vindication and profound sadness. "Miguel died trying to get justice for his fellow workers. He trusted me with this evidence, and I failed him because I couldn't remember." "You didn't fail him," Agent Martinez said firmly. "You survived an assassination attempt, overcame traumatic brain injury, and now you're finishing what he started. Miguel would be proud." Marcus's phone buzzed with a call from Sophia. He stepped away from the table to answer. "Marcus, you need to get back to the hospital. David's awake and asking for you." "How is he?" "Stronger. Much stronger. The doctors can't explain it, but his white cell count is normal, the infection is gone, and he's responding to treatment better than he has in months." "But Marcus, that's not why I'm calling." "What's happening?" "The GoFundMe campaign just hit $400,000. Donations are coming in from all over the world. CNN, BBC, Good Morning America. Everyone wants to interview us. And Marcus," her voice broke with emotion, "the hospital board just called. They're not only reinstating me, they're offering me the head of emergency medicine position." Marcus closed his eyes, feeling tears of relief stream down his face. "Sophia, that's incredible. There's more. The Meridian Construction story is everywhere. Blackstone was arrested this morning trying to flee the country. And Marcus, the families of all the workers who were injured are filing a class action lawsuit. The settlements are going to be enormous, enough to pay for medical care for everyone who was hurt." When Marcus returned to the hospital that evening, he found David sitting up in bed for the first time in months. Despite his obvious illness, there was color in his cheeks and strength in his voice. "So you're the homeless man who saved my life," David said, extending a thin but steady hand. Marcus shook it carefully. "I'm just someone who learned that kindness creates miracles. Sophia told me everything. About the gas station, about the GoFundMe, about what you sacrificed to help us. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me. Just get better." David smiled. "That's the plan. The doctors say I'm a candidate for the experimental treatment now. My body is finally strong enough to handle it. Sophia appeared in the doorway, and Marcus's breath caught. She was beautiful before, but now she was radiant. Hope had transformed her completely. She wore a new dress instead of scrubs, her hair was down around her shoulders, and she looked like a woman who had just been given her life back. "The treatment starts Monday," she said, moving to David's bedside and taking his hand. "The best oncology team in the country is flying in from Johns Hopkins. The GoFundMe campaign has raised enough money to pay for everything: the experimental treatment, all our medical bills, and our mortgage." Marcus felt a complex emotion wash over him as he watched Sophia and David together. There was a part of him, a part he tried to push away, that had developed feelings for Sophia over the past few days. But seeing them together, seeing the pure love between them, he knew that what he felt was protective, not romantic. Sophia had saved his life by showing him kindness, and he had saved theirs by finding the strength to fight for justice. "There's something else," David said, looking between Marcus and Sophia. "The news coverage has done more than just raise money for our family. Other people are sharing their stories now. Families destroyed by corporate negligence, workers injured by companies that put profits over safety. You two started something much bigger than one fundraising campaign." A knock at the door interrupted them. James Morrison entered, followed by a woman Marcus didn't recognize. "Marcus, I'd like you to meet Dr. Amanda Foster. She's the director of the Institute for Sustainable Architecture at State University." Dr. Foster stepped forward with a warm smile. "Mr. Thompson, your story has inspired our entire faculty. We'd like to offer you a position as a professor of ethical design and community architecture. Your experience, both as a successful architect and as someone who's experienced homelessness, gives you a unique perspective that our students need to hear." Marcus stared at her. I don't know if I'm ready. The brain injury, my memory problems." "We've spoken with your doctors," Dr. Foster said gently. "Your cognitive function has improved dramatically over the past week. Stress and trauma were preventing your brain from healing. Now that you've found purpose again, the healing is accelerating. The position comes with full medical benefits, housing, and a salary that will allow you to live comfortably while you rebuild your life," James added. "You'd also be working with a legal clinic that helps families fight corporate negligence cases." Marcus looked at Sophia, who nodded encouragingly. "You have to take it, Marcus. You were meant to build things, buildings, communities, hope. This is your chance to do all three." "What about you?" Marcus asked. "What happens now?" Sophia smiled. "David and I are going to fight this cancer together, and we're going to win. And then we're going to spend the rest of our lives paying forward the kindness that saved us both." 3 hours later, Marcus stood outside the hospital, breathing in the cool November air. His life had changed completely in just 48 hours. He had a job, a home, a purpose, and most importantly, he had his identity back. He was no longer a broken man living on the streets. He was Marcus Thompson, architect of hope. His phone buzzed with a text from Betty. "Saw you on the news. The diner's been packed all day with people wanting to hear the story. You're famous, honey. And I'm proud of you." Another text, this one from Sarah, his ex-wife. "Saw the news coverage. Emma and Jake want to see you. Maybe we can talk about you being part of their lives again." Marcus smiled as he read message after message from old friends, colleagues, and complete strangers who had been inspired by the story. But the text that meant the most came from Sophia. "Thank you for showing me that angels sometimes come disguised as people who need help themselves. You saved more than David's life. You saved my faith in humanity." As Marcus walked toward his new apartment, the university had provided temporary housing until he could find a permanent place. He passed the gas station where this all began. The same fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The same cold wind cut through the night air. But everything was different now. A young woman sat against the brick wall with a cardboard sign. She looked up as Marcus approached, her eyes wary but hopeful. Marcus pulled out his wallet and handed her a $20 bill. "What's your name?" "Jessica," she said, surprised by the question. "Jessica, my name is Marcus. And I want you to know that your story isn't over yet. Sometimes the darkest moments are just the foundation for something beautiful." He handed her Dr. Foster's business card. Call this number tomorrow. Tell them Marcus Thompson sent you. There are people who want to help, and there are opportunities waiting for you." As he walked away, Marcus heard Jessica call after him. "Thank you. Thank you for seeing me." Marcus smiled and continued walking toward his new life, knowing that every act of kindness creates ripples that can change the world. How do you think one person's kindness can inspire an entire community to action? Have you ever witnessed how helping others can heal the helper as much as the helped? Share your thoughts on the power of second chances and paying it forward. Part 9. Satisfying conclusion. 6 months later. The lecture hall at State University was packed beyond capacity, with students sitting in the aisles and standing along the walls. Marcus Thompson stood at the podium, no longer the broken man who had sat outside a gas station begging for spare change. His hair was neatly cut, he wore a well-tailored suit, and his eyes sparkled with the confidence of someone who had found his true calling. "Architecture isn't just about buildings," he told the captivated audience. "It's about creating spaces where human dignity can flourish, where communities can grow stronger, where hope can take root and spread. When we design without considering the human impact of our work, we're not architects, we're just people moving materials around." In the front row, Dr. Amanda Foster nodded approvingly. Marcus's Ethics in Design course had become the most popular class at the university, with a waiting list 3 semesters long. Students weren't just learning about sustainable building practices, they were learning about sustainable communities, about the responsibility that came with shaping the spaces where people lived, worked, and dreamed. After the lecture, Marcus gathered his materials and headed across campus to his second job, one that paid nothing but meant everything. The legal aid clinic occupied a converted warehouse that Marcus had helped design, creating a space that felt welcoming rather than intimidating for families seeking justice against corporate negligence. "Professor Thompson," called a familiar voice. Marcus turned to see Miguel Rodriguez Jr., a first-year law student whose father had died collecting evidence against Meridian Construction. "I wanted to thank you for the scholarship letter. I got into Harvard Law." Marcus smiled and shook the young man's hand. "Your father would be proud, Miguel. You're going to be an incredible lawyer." "I'm going to finish what he started," Miguel Jr. said. "There are companies out there still cutting corners, still putting workers at risk. But now they know someone's watching." As Marcus walked toward his car, a modest Honda Civic that he'd bought with his first paycheck, his phone rang. Sophia's name appeared on the screen, and his face lit up with genuine joy. "How's the most famous doctor in the city?" he asked. "Tired but happy," Sophia laughed. "David just finished his last round of treatment. The doctors are calling it a complete remission. The cancer is gone, Marcus. Gone." Marcus felt tears spring to his eyes. "That's incredible news. It gets better. David proposed to me again last night. Said he wanted to marry me all over again, as the people we've become through this journey. We're having a second wedding next month, and we want you to be David's best man." Marcus pulled over to the side of the road, overwhelmed by emotion. "I would be honored." "There's something else," Sophia continued. "The book deal came through. The Architecture of Hope, How Kindness Built a Miracle, is going to be published by Random House. They want to donate all the proceeds to a foundation we're creating to help families facing medical bankruptcy." The book had been Sophia's idea, a collaboration between her and Marcus telling their story from both perspectives. Publishers had been in a bidding war for weeks, but they'd chosen Random House because of their commitment to social impact publishing. "When do we start the book tour?" Marcus asked. "Next month, right after the wedding. Marcus, they want us to appear on 60 Minutes, The Tonight Show, and Good Morning America. Our story is going to reach millions of people." Marcus thought about the ripple effects that were already spreading from their chance encounter at a gas station. The GoFundMe campaign had raised over $800,000, allowing them to help not just David, but dozens of other families facing similar crises. The Meridian Construction case had resulted in a $50 million settlement for injured workers and their families. Richard Blackstone was serving a 20-year sentence for conspiracy, murder, and racketeering. But more importantly, their story had inspired a movement. Random Acts of Architecture, a nonprofit Marcus had founded, was now operating in 12 cities, connecting homeless individuals with architectural firms willing to provide training and employment. Sophia's Healing Hearts initiative was providing support for medical families facing financial crisis. Speaking of the foundation, Sophia said, "You'll never believe who called today. Emma and Jake want to volunteer at the next community build." Marcus's heart swelled with pride. His relationship with his children had been slowly rebuilding over the past 6 months. Sarah had been hesitant at first, but seeing Marcus's transformation and the positive media coverage had convinced her to give him another chance at being their father. "They're incredible kids," Marcus said. "Takes after their mother." "They take after their father too," Sophia said gently. "The father who's learned that strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up and helping others do the same." After ending the call, Marcus sat in his car for a moment, reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. 6 months ago, he'd been a broken man who had lost everything. Tonight, he would go home to his apartment filled with architectural sketches for affordable housing projects, photos of the families he'd helped, and letters from students whose lives had been changed by his story. He drove to his favorite restaurant, the same 24-hour diner where Betty had helped him change the world. She was still working the night shift, though she now wore a button that read "Famous Betty, friend of Marcus Thompson." "The usual?" she asked with a grin as he slid into his regular booth. "Please. And Betty, thank you. For everything." "Honey, you thanked me enough when you paid off my mortgage," Betty said, waving him off. "Besides, I should be thanking you. This place has been packed every night since the story went viral. People come from all over just to sit in the booth where the miracle started." As Marcus ate his dinner, he watched the other late-night customers, a mix of students, shift workers, and people seeking shelter from the cold. At a corner table, he noticed a young man who looked familiar. Thin, wearing clothes that had seen better days, staring into a cup of coffee he'd probably been nursing for hours. Marcus finished his meal, paid his check, and approached the young man's table. "Excuse me," he said gently. "Are you okay?" The young man looked up, and Marcus saw something achingly familiar in his eyes, the hollow look of someone who had lost everything and didn't know how to find their way back. "I'm fine," the young man said, but his voice suggested otherwise. Marcus slid into the seat across from him. "My name is Marcus Thompson. What's yours?" "Tyler," the young man said hesitantly. "Tyler Walsh." "Tyler, I want to tell you something that might sound crazy, but I need you to hear it. 6 months ago, I was living on the streets, sitting outside a gas station, completely broken and convinced my life was over. Tonight, I'm a professor, an author, and someone who gets to help people rebuild their lives every single day." Tyler stared at him. "You're the guy from the news. The homeless man who learned that rock bottom can be a foundation if you're willing to build something new on it," Marcus finished. "Tyler, what's your story?" Over the next hour, Tyler told Marcus about losing his job, his apartment, his girlfriend, and his hope. He was 24 years old, had a degree in engineering, and had been living in his car for 3 weeks. Marcus listened without judgment, remembering how desperately he'd needed someone to simply see him as human. When Tyler finished his story, Marcus pulled out his business card. "Tyler, I want you to call me tomorrow. I know people who are hiring. I know places where you can stay while you get back on your feet, and I know that your story doesn't end here. It's just beginning." Tyler took the card with shaking hands. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." Marcus smiled, thinking of Sophia's words that cold November night. "Sometimes we're put in each other's paths for a reason." "Because someone once helped me when I needed it most," Marcus said. "And because kindness isn't just something we do for others, it's something we do for ourselves, for our communities, for the world we want to live in." As Marcus walked back to his car, he pulled out his phone and sent a text to Sophia. "Just met someone who reminded me why we do this work. The ripples keep spreading." Her response came immediately. "They always will. That's the beautiful thing about hope. It's contagious." Marcus drove home through the city. He was helping to rebuild, one person, one family, one act of kindness at a time. The gas station where it all began glowed in his rearview mirror, a beacon of possibility in the darkness. He thought about the question Sophia had asked him 6 months ago. "Sometimes we're put in each other's paths for a reason, don't you think?" Now he knew the answer. They weren't just put in each other's paths. They were put there to light the way for others, to show that no one was beyond hope, no situation was beyond redemption, and no act of kindness was too small to change the world. As he pulled into his parking spot, Marcus saw a homeless woman setting up a makeshift shelter behind the apartment building. Without hesitation, he grabbed the blanket from his back seat, along with the sandwich he'd brought home from the diner. "Excuse me," he said gently, approaching her with the same respect Sophia had shown him. "I was wondering if you might need some help." The woman looked up at him with wary eyes that softened when she saw the kindness in his face. "What's your name?" Marcus asked. "Angela," she said quietly. "Angela, my name is Marcus. And I want you to know that whatever brought you here, whatever you're going through, you're not alone. And your story isn't over. Sometimes it's just beginning." What do you think makes the difference between kindness that helps temporarily and kindness that transforms lives permanently? How can each of us create ripple effects of hope in our own communities? Share your thoughts on the power of seeing others as they could become, rather than as they are right now. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that miracles happen through ordinary people doing extraordinary things, then you're part of our community. We share stories like this every week, stories of hope, redemption, and the incredible power of human kindness. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because there are so many more incredible true stories waiting to inspire you. And remember, you might be one act of kindness away from changing someone's entire life. The question is, who will you help today? Thank you for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.